to the Not Your Average Knits podcast. Thank you all for watching today, those of you who have been watching all of my episodes all along, and also anyone who is new to the podcast. My name is Kim. I am kbridgeo on Ravelry and Not Your Average Knits on Instagram, and I'd also love for you all to join my group on Ravelry, which is called Not Your Average Knits. It's been a couple weeks since my last podcast, so hope everyone is doing well and enjoying their summer. And this is episode 11, which is pretty crazy, but I've been having so much fun, so thanks again for coming back. So one of the things that is currently happening is our Game of Thrones knit along. So we just wrapped up the first half. So what we had been doing was running the knit along for 6 weeks leading up to the premiere, and then now another 6 weeks throughout the whole season, from when the premiere that just happened through to the finale at the end of August. Hopefully all of you who have are Game of Thrones fans watched the premiere. I actually wasn't home on Sunday night, so I didn't watch it until yesterday. And my husband, who had already watched it with me, and he has a memory like you wouldn't believe, where he just remembers everything, and so he knows, everybody's name, knows all of the storylines, like he just retains all of that information. So of course, before we watched, and he had already watched it, he was super patient and gracious, and answered a bunch of questions that I had, just to sort of make sure that I was kind of caught up and remembered all of the key things that had been going on. And then throughout the episode, of course, we would pause and I would be like, okay, wait, so who killed who, and who is he, and who is he connected to, and who is he against, and who is his allies, and who. So I think what was an hour show probably took an hour and a half to watch, because of all of the pausing and questions that I had. But it was a pretty good episode. I mean, obviously a really good opening scene and a really good ending scene, and just a lot of kind of furthering of the various plots during the episode. So that was super exciting. Really anxious to see how the season goes. Anyway, so I did want to do the first prize. So I looked at the finished objects as of Friday night and randomly chose a winner, and the winner is Janice424. Congratulations, Janice. So she did a hat pattern, which was called the Stark hat, for the beloved Stark family. And her prize is this yarn from Wolfiend. This is her BFL Aran base, and the color is Mother of Dragons. So congrats to you, and thank you to Emily of Wolfiend for donating this beautiful yarn. So Janice, if you can message me either on Instagram or on Ravelry and send me your mailing address, we will get this out to you. So for those of you, I think there was a question in the Ravelry group just yesterday maybe, whether the knit along is still going on, and if it's too late. It's absolutely not too late. We're going to go until the end of August, so anyone who had some whips from the beginning of the knit along, or anyone who wants to cast on something new, please do. We have some great prizes. We have 2 more skeins of yarn, some stitch markers, and a project bag, which I think is actually in today's mail. So lots of great prizes that will be given out at the end of August for any finished objects. So as soon as you finish something, go into the finished objects thread and post a picture. And there's also a chatter thread, so if you're doing any whips or want ideas for patterns, go check that out. Also want to thank any of you who maybe purchased my Who Wears the Crown pattern that I released I guess a little bit over a week ago. There's been really great reaction to it, and a lot of people have really been enjoying the pattern so far. And I'm just super appreciative to everyone who's been supportive about it. There was a discount, but as of when this podcast will post, that will be over. But as I think I've mentioned before, for anyone who watches my podcast, I have a special coupon code, KNOT25, KNOT25, and that will get you 25% off any of my patterns. So that's just kind of my personal thank you to all of the watchers of this podcast. And like I said, that goes for the Who Wears the Crown pattern, or any other patterns that are currently in my shop or will eventually be in my shop. So if you're interested in any of those, go check that out. Also wanted to let you know, so Emily from Wolfiend, who donated the yarn that I just showed for the prize, she also put together some kits for Who Wears the Crown. The main color, I'll put a picture, the main color is the same Mother of Dragons that is in this prize yarn. So it's like a light blue and some dark blue and gold colorway. So she has a main color that's that colorway, and then 3 minis that are gold, dark blue, and a light blue. So I had used her yarn for a main color in the sample that I knit of that shawl. So she kind of put together a kit with all of her yarn, which is super exciting. So go check out her Etsy shop if that's something that you're interested in. If you maybe bought the pattern and hadn't decided on yarn yet, or if maybe you haven't bought the pattern yet because you want to sort of find what yarn you'll use, that would be a perfect kit to use. Okay, so one of the things I did want to talk about, so in the last couple episodes, I had been working on a secret test knit that I couldn't show you, but now I can, so it has been released. So Gabrielle Vizina is the designer behind this shawl, which is called the Daylight Shawl. I believe that this pattern was in the most recent Yarn Crush subscription box, I think for July. So I guess that was why it was a secret. I didn't even know what the pattern was for. It was a secret to all of the test knitters as well. So mine is knit in Madeline Tosh Sport in the Opaline colorway. What's great about her pattern is that it's designed where you can use just one skein, like 400 yards of fingering or even less than that. Or if you have more yardage, you can use more yardage. It's super, super flexible and various weights. I think her sample was in fingering and I did mine in sport. Let me see how well you can see it. So this is it right here. So it has a super pretty cabled edge and then a section of garter. And then on the bottom is all of this kind of cables and lace. Really, really fun. It was a pretty basic repeat, and it's knit side to side. So you actually cast on this end, and then you get to a point where, so you're doing kind of increases, and then you get to a middle point. So you can kind of see right there where the point is on this shawl. And then you start decreasing. So what's nice is that you can, if you have one skein of yarn, just kind of keep weighing your yarn and then add a certain repeat when you've used just about half of your yarn, then you can start the decrease section. For me, I had 2 skeins of this yarn, so I just used one skein, and then once that skein was over, then I used the other skein for the other half. Again, weighing just to kind of make sure that I had enough and wouldn't run out for the cast off. But it's a really great pattern, and so this one is about 50 something long because it's designed to sort of only use one skein if you need it. It's not super huge, so it comes to right about there if you use it as like a wrap. And mine, because I used sport weight and I used I think like 500 yards maybe, it's a little bit bigger than her sample, but that's what's nice about it, is that it's super flexible. So it's kind of nice. It makes sort of just like a nice shoulder wrap that would be nice even in warmer weather as like a wrap over a dress or something. One of the things too, which I was debating, and then some of the other test knitters also did, was actually seam the edges and then make a cowl out of it. So then if if you have it seamed, then it would make an infinity scarf or cowl too. So that's that. So this is the Daylight Shawl, again, by Gabrielle Vizina. I'll put her info below. And she also has a discount if you buy the pattern until July 24th. You can get 20% off. No coupon needed. This was the first time I used Tosh Sport. And I liked it a lot. I think, so last episode, I think I was talking about gauge. And when I started knitting this, so you knit this, you start knitting here, the cables in this section were really, really tight. And even like the one on the edge was really tight, and I had debated frogging and going up a needle size, but I ended up not, and I stuck with it. And this was one that really like blocked out really nice. The cables are still a little tight in some of this section, but it's kind of supposed to be because it's a like double cable. But it still has so much drape, like so much more than I thought it would. So again, just kind of, I guess, trusting gauge and knowing that blocking will loosen up the fabric a little bit. And I liked the Tosh Sport. It was, just new to me, and so I like it a lot. And this colorway is really interesting too. So this is Opaline. I think I showed the skein of it a couple episodes ago. It's just like pinkish and purple, and I don't know, I really, really like it. It's showing pretty true to color, actually. Like, it might look a little dull and muted, but it's just very, very subtle, the tonal changes in it. Although some of the skeins, like in other people's stash and projects, are lighter. Like, there's more kind of neutral color in it than the pink and purple. So, and I didn't alternate or anything with my two skeins. Anyway, so that's that. That is the Daylight Shawl. So now to talk about the other things that I have done. I actually have two finished objects, which is super exciting. So the first one is the Lemi K by Isabel Kramer, which I've shown you multiple whip versions and pictures of the pattern. Let me back up. So this is the finished object. Super, super pretty. Really, really like it. So the majority, it's triangle shaped. The edge is garter with the eyelets. The majority of it here was stockinette. And then the edge, oh, so pretty. It's just this awesome cable and lace and seed stitch, and then finishes off with 2x2 rib. I think 2x2 rib, some sort of rib. So pretty. And this ended up being really, really big. And I knit it to pattern, didn't change the pattern at all. So this is knit in Aurora Spots and Wilmies. This is their DK, 100% superwash merino. And each skein is actually 200 grams. 468 yards. And the colorway is weird different. Wilmies has really interesting names of colors. And this is the first time I'd used their yarn. I do have some, but I hadn't used it before. And I used one full skein, and then this is all that I have left of the second skein. So I mean, definitely that 200 gram skein does a lot. So super pretty. I really like this pattern. This would be something I would definitely recommend it to someone who wants like a good solid one color shawl pattern. You know, so much of this at the beginning is stockinette, so it's super mindless. And then once you get to this part on the bottom, there's a chart and written directions. And I mean, it's not challenging. You have to kind of really pay attention to the chart and make sure that you're doing it right, but the result is gorgeous. So anyway, so that's that. So this is Lemi K. Now this I had knit as part of the Will Work for Yarn Ravelry group. So this is going to my friend Belinda in Maine. So I've worked on a couple projects for her in the past, and this is one that she had me do for her. So I will be shipping this off to her probably in the next day or so. And finally, my other, it's about that I just checked to make sure that I was actually recording. Oh, because I could easily, like I did once, get through the whole podcast and realize I wasn't recording, so I just needed to check. Okay, so the other finished object I have is my Free Your Fade, which you guys have also seen a bunch of times before. Make sure I'm showing you the right side. Here it is. So it starts, you start down here, and then it fades and fades. And so remember I had talked about whether I was going to change back to the white color, which I did. Just kind of, normally it's supposed to end like around here with this color, but I kind of did a few stripes to fade back in the first color, which is woodland, and then did another eyelet row. And then the cast off for this is like a picot edge, but I didn't want to do that, but I did. I don't even know if you'll really be able to see it, but see how it's just kind of like loosey-goosey. So I sort of made up my own cast off as I was going. See, it's just kind of like bumpy, where I did a regular bind off, but just kind of knit every stitch twice. So I would like knit 2 stitches, but instead of binding off, I put those stitches back on the left needle, would knit them again, and then I think there was another step in there that I did. I wrote it down, but just to sort of make it a little bit bigger and stretchy, but without the picot and without some of the other kind of looser cast offs that I've seen before. So I liked it. So it's not like obvious, super obvious that it's different. So anyway, so this yarn is all Woolen Boon. I actually don't have the tags, but I've showed it a million times. So if you go back to earlier episodes, you'll see them. So this is Woolen Boon Boon Classic, which is fingering weight. In Woodland is the cream color, Ever is the green, and then Heartland is the orange variegated. And these typically are not my colors. Green and orange are not things that I tend to knit with. But I think I had said way early on I had these two colors that I bought together from Sonia at Woolen Boon that I knew I just really, really wanted to use them together. Because you can just kind of see how there's so much of that kind of green speckling in this one that goes with this green. And then when Andrea Mowry came out with this pattern, I figured that was a really good opportunity to use it. And then I actually had Heartland in my stash, just because it's such a pretty colorway. So it worked out well. It was a great way to do a pattern with stash yarn that I already had. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it's a really good size. You know, these hang down like pretty long, so you could probably tie them or even wrap it a few more times. And it drapes really well. Again, this is the first time I've finished an object with Woolen Boon yarn, which is crazy because it's my favorite and I have so much in my stash. But so it was nice to just kind of see how nice it drapes and the feel of it too. So that's that. That's my For You Fade. All right. So what am I doing? Doing a lot, and most of these things are new that you'll see. So the first thing, actually, I have shown this before. So this is a baby blanket that I'm making for my sister-in-law. She is having a little boy due in September, but her baby shower is going to be in like 10 days. So I need to hurry up and finish the blanket. I was kind of taking my time. So I'm making like the Cozy Memories blanket type of thing where it's just the mitered squares, but I'm making them bigger. And I'm using, this is also Woolen Boon yarn, but this is one of her earlier skeins. This was the base is Triple Boon and the color was Blueberry, I think. So I don't think she carries this base or does this color anymore. But this was, I think, the first skein I ever bought from her. So I just kind of keep measuring, weighing the yarn, but I think I will have enough to do a 9-block square, which won't be super huge, but I really did want to make this blanket just because it's like so light and smushy, just kind of like a car seat blanket, or, you know, one that you would just kind of take with you, not like a heavy baby blanket that you would use in a crib or anything like that. And I don't have kids, so I don't really know when or where you need blankets. But anyway, so I thought it would be a cute, just sort of 9-block square. And then I also bought this Valley Yarns Huntington. This is from Webb's. This is their navy colorway. So this is merino nylon fingering. So I'm going to do a border with this just to make it a little bit bigger. Haven't really decided if I'm going to crochet a border or if I'm going to just kind of pick up stitches and just knit kind of a garter border. I don't know. We'll see what I feel like kind of when I get to that point. So anyway, so this is where I am. So I've done the first 3. I'm on the 4th. Surprisingly, these squares take a lot longer than you would kind of think they would. So yeah, so it's not going super quick, but I've been working on other things, but I do need to kind of get back to this if I want it to be ready for the baby shower. So that's that. Oh, and this is in my Woodsy and Wild bag, which I love. Cute little bird eggs and nests. Okay, then next, so this is something new, but I think I talked about wanting to do it last time. So this I am using Knit Picks Chroma Worsted. This is gray. I think this is lupine. I'll put it on the screen, but I think that's what it is. And I am making a striped scarf. So I think this is, I know this is Jared Flood's version. I think he calls it Neuro striped scarf, and it's just kind of his recipe of sort of a typical striped scarf. So this is, you just knit purl and you alternate every 2 rows, and it just makes like a really kind of fun stretchy scarf. And it's nice to make with, I like to make it with a solid color and then have the other stripe be gradient. And it's nice. I mean, I like Knit Picks Chroma. It's a little, because it's single ply, I get a little frustrated with it sometimes. I tend to like plied yarns a little bit better. But it's super easy and just kind of go along and make progress. So this has sort of turned into my commute project, just to make progress on that. And then, so I was telling you guys last time about entrelac, and I think I put a bunch of pictures of different entrelac scarves that I've done. I'll show you that. I got some new bags, but I'll show you that in the what have I got section. So I started on entrelac and I've actually made some really good progress. So the yarn that I'm using, I'll show you from the skein, is Feederbrook Farms, which I had first been introduced to through a yarn box. This is her Entropy. I think this is DK, and this was actually the second time it was featured in a yarn box, and it's called Entropy Milk and Honey. So it actually has milk protein in the yarn, which is super interesting, and I had never really used yarn with that before, but it does add a little bit of kind of silkiness to it, which is nice. And it's spun, probably machine spun. I don't think it's hand spun, but it's cool that it's sort of dyed separately and then spun together, so it's just sort of looks like typical hand spun yarn. And this colorway is really interesting too, because it's very kind of rainbow. So this is what I have so far, which is a lot. So I'm already like halfway through my second skein. So it starts there. That's where I am right now. So you can see how it's very kind of turning out to be rainbow. But I just love the look of it. So I did mine just typical stockinette. Some people will do garter or will alternate squares with stockinette and reverse stockinette. Some people will do, I've seen a pattern with like lacy stuff on some of them, but I just kind of like the way regular stockinette looks. And it looks a little bumpy now, but when it blocks, you can definitely block it like super flat, where even though the wrong side is kind of bumpy because you pick up stitches, so it creates these like ridges. When you block it, it blocks pretty flat, which is nice. Yeah, so I think I was saying before, like for people who haven't tried entrelac, and if it's like scary to you, I just say give it a try, and I will definitely, if anyone does try it, I'm here for you. Feel free to reach out to me with questions or problems or whatever. I mean, really the stitches that it uses is knit, purl, knit front back, purl 2 together, slip stitch, slip knit. So all stitches that you've probably used in other patterns, and the only thing that sort of makes it different is that you pick up stitches, which really isn't that difficult. And especially in this pattern, when you slip the stitch, it does it in a way where it makes very obvious like where you pick up the stitch. If you do socks, if you do like a typical heel flap where you pick up stitches, that's what you're doing. And if you crochet, the idea of picking up stitches in this pattern is very similar, because you sort of see this little V-stitch and you put your needle through and wrap the yarn around. So it's very similar to the idea of crocheting, where you just kind of find that spot to pull the yarn through, similar to crochet. So anyway, I want everyone to try entrelac because it's fun. I always feel that way about like entrelac and cables. Like I think it's so scary to some people, but the result is so beautiful that I think it's worth the effort. I think that's kind of like brioche to me next is going to be my own sort of sticking to something and actually finishing a brioche project, because I think that to me is sort of I know how to do it, but it's a little intimidating for whatever reason. So I'm going to push through that so you guys can try and push through your fear of entrelac. The needles I'm using for this, I don't remember if I showed this last time or not. So I bought these signature needles when they were having a sale and free shipping a while ago. These are size 7s. They have, so I really, really like working with signatures, but they're so expensive that there's no way they're ever going to be the only needles I use. But when they were having the sale, I did want to buy some that were sort of needles that I tend to use frequently. I had put together, I just written down a list of, at one point, like a few weeks ago, of all of my whips and then all of the projects that I wanted to do next. And then next to it, like what needles I was using for all of those, just to get a sense of like what I needed to finish in order to cast on something else with that needle, because I don't have, an endless supply. And almost everything that I had been doing and wanting to do was either a 4 or a 7, because I think most of the fingering weight shawls I use are on 4s, and then a lot of kind of the DK worsted stuff that I do is on 7s. So when I bought a couple signature needles, I got 4s and 7s. Now they have, they're technically not interchangeable. I forget what they call them. I don't even know, cord, I don't know. They call them something. So you buy the actual needle, and these come in, I think, 4, 5, or 6 inch. I think it depends maybe on the size of the needle, how long the needle tips come in. I think I got the 5s. So that's kind of personal preference, like how much of needle you actually like to hold. And it just screws in. And then you can buy different size cords. Now the catchy thing and why it's super expensive and different from typical interchangeable is that this cord only fits on a 7. And this, I think this was 16 inch or 20 inch or something. So you can't use this on anything else but a 7. So while I would never have to buy another set of 7s, I do have to buy multiple cords if I want to use the 7 with different lengths. So that's not ideal. But so because 7s I mostly use for scarves, I got a fairly short, or hats or something, or cowls. I got a fairly short cord. And I do like them so far. Like they are pretty tight, and you don't really catch where it connects. And then the join of the base of the cord to the actual cord is pretty good, pretty secure. It's not a super flexible cord, but it's also kind of new. This is the first project that I use it with. So I'm liking them so far. Like I said, I use 7s a lot, so these will kind of be my go-to for that. And then I got 4s, and I got a much longer cord for 4s to do fingering weight sweaters and shawls and things like that, because I use 4s a lot for that. All right, so that is Feederbrook. So the only other thing, so this is actually kind of what's next, and I almost cast this on the other day, but then sort of decided I wanted to show you kind of a trick that I know that maybe not a lot of other people do in terms of a different kind of cast on. So what this is going to be is the Escama del Dragon cowl, or infinity scarf, I guess, either way. And this is a free pattern, and this was one that had been in my favorites for a long time. And when I was looking through patterns to suggest to people for the Game of Thrones knit-along, one that I came across, and it has dragon in the title, so you can use it for the knit-along. So I wanted to cast on another thing for our knit-along, and then Emily with Wolfiend, she also has a podcast in a Ravelry group, and she's doing a knit-along in hers that just started. So I want to do another one to participate in hers as well. So I'm about to cast on for this cowl. The yarn I'm using, let me get the tag. Excuse me. Okay. Is by Old Rusted Chair. And this is her Superwash Merino DK in a kind of magic, 250 yards. So I had bought, so she was one of my partners for the Fiber Share swap a while ago. I think I showed this yarn probably in like my first 1 or 2 episodes. And I had started a design with it and frogged a couple things. Again, it was one of those like just couldn't wrap my brain around a design. Super cool yarn, gray base with just rainbow speckles. So I have 2 of these. So I needed a DK yarn for this cowl, and I thought this would just be a really fun yarn to do just because of the way the pattern is made. There's just kind of splatters of colors everywhere with the way the stitch pattern is. I'll put a picture if I haven't already. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is a different type of cast on. And I actually mentioned this to my knitting group the other day, and it was kind of, not the other day, a couple weeks ago. And it was something that I had never mentioned to them before. And I mean, I've been knitting with them for a few years now, so I don't know where I first heard about it or picked up on it. And I actually kind of forget to cast on this way a lot of the time. So I typically do a long tail cast on. I know there are tons of other cast-ons. I just don't like the look of other cast-ons. I just love the way a long tail just creates just sort of a straight, nice, clean edge. Obviously, one of the challenges with the long tail cast-on is if you are casting on a lot of stitches, you need to know how much yarn you need to leave for a tail, and that can get frustrating if maybe you need every inch of yarn and you've left too much of a tail, or if you run out of yarn before you've finished all of your cast on stitches and then you have to start over, because that's no fun. So one of the things you can do, so if you have, so I have 2 balls of yarn, but say you had a cake or even a pull skein, you would find 2 ends. So you would pull from the middle of the cake and the outside of the cake, or similar with the pull skein, pull from the middle or the outside. In this case, I have 2 balls of yarn, so I'm going to use one end from each of the balls. So what you do, you would hold them both together and make your slip knot. So kind of with both of them together, I'm making my slip knot. Put that on your needle. So now I have the slip knot on my needle. Then you separate the 2 strands, and then you do your long tail like this with the 2 strands. So you don't need to worry about how long one of these tails is still actually connected to your yarn. So in my case for this, I have to cast on 208. I'm not going to cast on 208 right now, but I'll just cast on a few with the long tail. So once you've finished casting on as many stitches as you need, you would just cut one strand of the yarn. You don't need to leave much of a tail, you would just cut one. Then you would just continue knitting with that other one. So the one that you cut would either be, I guess if you were pulling from the center skein, the one you would want to cut would be the end, the one that you pulled from the outside, so that you continue knitting with the one strand from the center pull. In this case, I have 2 balls, so it doesn't really matter. So you just cut one and then you continue knitting with the other. So now on the first row, so you can see that the first one I did where the slip knot has 2 strands there. You can either knit into that, just like knit those 2 strands together when you get to this one, or if you cast on one extra, you can actually drop this on the end. So let me actually just show you. So I'll just knit these few stitches so again, pretend I'm not going to cut my yarn, but pretend I cut one of these and then you knit through. So say I cast on one extra stitch than what I needed. When I get to the end where those 2 are, you don't even need to worry about it. You can just pull them straight off. So if you really didn't want that, like the 2 yarns in that one stitch from your slip knot, you just cast on one extra and then you just drop that one off when you get to that point, and I have 5 stitches on there. So it's just a really different way, and it doesn't look any different. You're just sort of using a little bit of yarn from either the outside or from another skein of yarn, which you would be doing anyway when you got to that point of the yarn. So I mean, I guess if you're only casting on like 30 stitches or something, you can use whatever method you use to sort of measure out 30 stitches, which doesn't take much time. But if you're trying to, like in this case, 208 stitches, that's sort of a lot. And so I wouldn't want to run out or waste too much yarn. Okay, so let's see, that's what I've done, that's what I'm doing. I guess what's left is what I've got. So the first thing I got, so I had shown you a couple episodes ago this flat notions pouch from the Scrappy Thread. All quilted, one-of-a-kind stuff. She literally uses scraps from various fabrics that she has. So like she'll never necessarily knit the same thing twice because it's just whatever kind of fabric she has left over and puts them all together. So I did want to get a larger bag. So this is Erica from the Scrappy Thread. So this is one of her larger bags. So in this one, it's gray on top and pattern on the bottom. Some of hers has patchwork everywhere, maybe has the solid color on the bottom. always different. And this one has a fun bright green zipper and polka dots in the middle. And then her bags always come with a progress keeper, which is also a zipper pull. And this too is fabric in this little buttony clasp thing. And it's just, I mean, I love the sort of feeling of things being quilted, and it's a really good size bag. So it's hard, like, and she'll post, so if you follow her on Instagram, she'll post when she's doing her latest updates. And I mean, her stuff sells out super quick, and it's really, I was teasing her on Instagram saying that I should just send my paycheck directly to her because I just love her bag so much. She also has drawstring bags, and the drawstring is actually a ruler, so the fabric of the drawstring has a ruler on it, which is really cute. And you can also buy handles with a clasp on it, so that you can actually, like, this one doesn't have a handle, it's just a bag, but you could buy the additional little thing that you would clip to the zipper, or I think she would actually attach it to the bag for you if you buy it at the same time that you buy your bag. Anyway, so if you're looking just for a really solid, unique bag, Scrappy Thread, highly recommend it. I love her stuff. So that's that. And then, speaking of bags, so one of my other favorite bag companies is Mr. Indigos Bags. And Amy Meeks, who is Inked Indigo, she is also dyeing yarn. So she put up a post on Instagram saying that she wanted to do some kits where she would dye yarn that sort of goes along with one of the bags in Mr. Indigo's Bags shop. So I gave her sort of a few that I liked and just said, you know, pick whatever you want, whatever sort of you're inspired to dye yarn for. So the bag that she sent me is this super pretty butterfly bag. And the interior is that same pink. And again, these are the magnetic bags, which I love. And it's fun. The other one that I have of hers is this one. Which is like the letters and then just has a solid bottom. So this was kind of fun that it's fabric all around. So the yarn that she sent with it is this color. So there's her label, Indigo Color Co. Sock base, and she named it Butterflies to go with the butterfly bag. 463 yards, 75% superwash merino, and 25% nylon. It's just really pretty, lots of really pretty speckles, and blue and pink and purple. So it goes with the bag so nicely. So this is a fun little kit. So it was really neat, I think, for Amy to kind of be inspired by the various bags. I think I might make a hitchhiker out of this yarn. I just think that would look really pretty with the garter and the speckles of the hitchhiker. I've made a couple of those before. Really like that pattern, so kind of what I'm thinking. So the other thing that I got, so through Yarnbox, the moderators of the Yarnbox Ravelry group, every summer they do a Christmas in July swap. And they just pair you up with someone. You're not actually swapping with the same person. You're sending something to someone and someone else is sending something to you, kind of like the fiber share. And for Yarnbox, I think we do, I'm trying to remember the cost, $40 maybe, where half of that cost has to be yarn and then the other half would be, you know, little various different kinds of items. And they also provide you with different questionnaires to kind of fill out so your partner can just kind of get to know likes and dislikes and things like that. So Marlene is the person that got me and sent gifts to me. I don't have everything here to show you because I'm already using some stuff, but I did want to show you the yarn and a few of the goodies. So this yarn is from Cloudborne, and it's the Super Twist Superwash Merino Sport Twist. It is, I don't know how many yards, 200 yards, 50 grams. So when this yarn was initially a neutral, natural color, and Marlene actually dyed it. So she dyed the skein this color. Really, really pretty navy. I don't know if you can even see the purple. Really, really pretty. So that's awesome to just sort of get something that she dyed herself. And then the other yarn that she got me, so this yarn is from Bear Hug Fibers. Here we go, Bear Hug Fibers. And this is 50% silk, 50% superwash merino, 437 yards. And this is gorgeous. Like, I think I said that I like 50-50. I don't know, silk and merino blends. It's so, so, so soft. And I never heard, this is a new to me dyer. And then I, started following her on Instagram, and reached out to her and looked at her Etsy shop. She has gorgeous stuff. So, definitely go check out that site. I'll put all of the info on the bottom. But the colors in this is just so pretty. It's just kind of like a sky blue and white, and some darker colors in there. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I really, really like it. I can't even, I wish you could like feel how soft it is through the screen. So that was awesome. So really super sweet and thoughtful of my swap partner. She also sent me this book, which is crazy. Oh no, wait, not what? Can you see that? Crazy? Nope, not crazy. Brilliant ideas. And it is a grid notebook, which is so perfect for designing. So that was super thoughtful because she knows that I design. She didn't know of my podcast, so she started watching it after we got paired up. Actually, I think she said that she didn't even really know that knitting podcasts existed. So now she's watching others too, which totally happened to me. And then I became obsessed with all the amazing ones out there. So hopefully that's happened to a lot of you as well. Anyway, so grid paper, which is awesome for when I design some stuff. Then she sent these super cute sticky notes, which are the Disney Tsum Tsum guys, which I'm assuming she saw on my podcast of the progress keepers that I have. Either way, super cute and perfect for me. Then she sent this awesome kit. It's going to make noise, with tons of stitch markers and progress keepers in there. Tons. One of the big ones in here is a really cute progress keeper, is a fish. Like, how funny is that? And it like kind of moves and stuff. Really cute. And then just a lot of other, like this is another progress keeper, which is really cute. It has a little heart on the bottom. And then just sort of regular like circle and square stitch markers. So awesome. So I was super grateful to that. Okay, so that's it for what I got. A couple things I did want to talk about. So I know that the Crazy Sock Lady is doing her Just Stash July, where she's trying to not buy any more yarn and just use yarn that's in her stash. And I think we all, feel that way, like we want to buy more yarn because there's so much out there and it's all so gorgeous. But there's a point at which, you have so much to use, and sometimes you don't get around to using a lot of your stash. What I've been trying to do is to only buy. So I have a PayPal account, and that's mostly what I use for all of my sort of knitting related purchases. Because when I sell patterns, the money from sale of patterns goes into my PayPal account. And then similarly, so I have almost all of my stash up on Ravelry. When we moved into where we are now, when we were packing everything up, I went through every skein of yarn that I had because I had to clean out and pack the room that had all that yarn. A lot of it I had already had on Ravelry, but I just kind of went through some of it that was just in not great condition. I threw away other yarn, mostly like acrylic stuff and stuff like that from Michael's and other stores that I've had for a really long time. A bunch of it that I kind of felt like I wasn't going to use, I donated, and then just kind of sorted through the rest. And, I have a bin that's all baby yarn and another bin that's kind of bulkier yarn that I like, that I know I'll use, but just kind of probably not right away. So I kind of went through it all, took pictures of everything that I was keeping, and posted it all on Ravelry. I do have an app that I use. I gotta look at the name of it. Stash to Go is what I use. So usually on my laptop, I will actually enter in the stash, but then with Stash to Go, after I've entered it in, you can take a picture with your phone and then upload to your stash right from the app. So that's what I do to kind of add pictures to my stash and projects too. So like I'll usually create the actual project using my laptop, but then when I'm taking pictures of it in progress and things like that, I'll take pictures with my phone and then upload to my project page through that app. So anyway, so that's what I use for that. So when I was going through all my yarn, that's what I did. I had my laptop with me, entered stuff in, took a picture, loaded the picture. And then, with the Ravelry, you can, and decide what status you want to put it in. So things that I was definitely wanted to sell, I would put in the, the trade or sell section, and things that, maybe I knew I wasn't going to use right away and maybe wasn't super in love with, but that I felt like someone else might be interested in, and I would put that stuff up with that status too. So I get people who, inquire a lot about things in my stash, and recently had a few people buy things. One bought something that was from a other subscription that I liked the yarn, but wasn't, if someone else wanted it more, I was happy to sell it to them. And then someone else bought some of my old kind of Michael's yarn as well. And, I have PayPal only sort of as my whatever rule requirement for that. So then once it's in PayPal, then it's nice. And then, I feel like then I can buy yarn or a project bag or something. And at least it's using money that I, made from selling yarn that I had in my stash. So I sort of feel better about it that way than actually, it's sort of keeping it within the same knitting and yarn family and not really feeling like I'm spending money out of a bank account, because it's just sort of profit that I've made from either my patterns or from selling yarn that I have that then I can use to support another yarn company or someone else to buy some yarn. So that's what I do. So, I would recommend people who have yarn that you really, either definitely want to sell, or that you think other people might be interested in, just to post those kinds of things and make sure you put it with that status of will trade or sell. I've also found that if you, in the notes, you actually put what you're willing to sell it for, like $25 includes shipping, or, whatever a skein will combine shipping, whatever, people tend to, I know when I'm searching someone else's stash, if they don't have a cost in there and I have no idea like what they would take for it, I'm more likely to buy from someone who actually has a price in there. That being said, I don't put prices on everything, even though I know it's probably better that I should, especially with hand-dyed yarn and sort of more indie dyers. But like with some of the Michael stuff, some of it that's like still discontinued or whatever, and I just sort of, know that I'm going to sell it at a discount, and that people would just want it if they're finishing a project, or if it was something that, was discontinued that they really wanted. I'll just kind of put usually a set price there. Anyway, so just sort of a general recommendation to you guys that it's something that, maybe you want to think about doing, and then you get a little extra cash to then supplement our yarn buying addiction. So on that note, one of the other things I was thinking about, so I think maybe the last 2 holiday seasons, there's been a hashtag on Instagram called Get Your Yarn Wish Granted, where people will post on Instagram either like a brand of yarn or something else that they're really want that they've maybe never tried before or something like that, and then someone will offer to send it to them, and then in return that person will then send some yarn to someone else, and it's that kind of thing, which I think is really interesting. So I think I wanted to do that, where I think I'm going to open a post, a thread in my Ravelry group. I don't know what I'll call it yet. I was thinking like the Wishing Well or something like that, where you can just kind of put a post if there's either a yarn brand that you've never used that you're interested in. Maybe you've never used BFL wool and you want any brand that uses BFL wool. Maybe that you're specific where there's a certain yarn company and base and color that you want. Maybe you're looking for minis, maybe even if it's a project bag or progress keepers or any sort of maker of something that you're interested in. Just kind of put it out there, and then if there's others in the group that either want to gift that to you if they have it, or maybe you want to set up a trade where that person can then look at your stash and say, oh, sure, I have this, but are you willing to part with this? Maybe we can trade. Something like that I just thought would be kind of fun, just to sort of get the group together. I think there's almost 100 people in the Ravelry group, and so if you're not a member, you definitely go join. And I think it'll just be kind of fun to sort of see, what other people are using that they've never used before. Maybe you have a bunch of it and, no one's ever really thought to buy it before. So I don't know. So I thought that would be fun, just something to kind of try and just a thread to sort of leave open for, no beginning or end to it, just sort of something that we can just have out there. I think one of my things would be Wool and Vine yarn. I follow her on Instagram. She also has a podcast. She podcasts a lot. She does designs. She's super, super creative and talented. And I always kind of look on her website to buy her yarn and either never catch it when she has updates or everything's sold out when she does have an update and I go to check it out. So I think that's probably a yarn that I've looked at and sort of craved for a really long time that I've never had. So that would be probably something that I would post. Anyway, so that's kind of something I'm thinking of doing, hoping that's something that you guys are interested in as well. A way to kind of, have everyone get some yarn that they want without having to spend any money. So hopefully you guys think that's a good idea. I think that's all I had to talk about, which was kind of a lot. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Some weeks are super short, and then others I have a lot to talk about. So again, Game of Thrones Knit Along is still going on, so go check out the group. There's Chatter Thread, Finished Objects Thread. You have until, I think the finale is August 27th or something like that. So the week after that, I will close the thread, but obviously there's still a bunch of weeks until that comes, so I will keep you posted and remind you about that. But please join. All of the infos in the Ravelry group on sort of what you need to participate in that. And that's that. I hope you guys are having a great summer, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.